The next step is to draft the straight sleeve. As with the bodice block, this straight sleeve block will form the basis of all the more advanced sleeves shapes. The fitted sleeve, the two-piece sleeve for tailored garments, as well as the variations in decorative sleeve shapes. We need some new measurements. We already have the top arm measurement, and you'll see how this relates to the bodice block. Length of arm from shoulder to wrist, length from shoulder to elbow, elbow width, although this is only really necessary when we adapt this block for a fitted sleeve, and also the wrist measurement, again to be used when we draft other blocks. So with the equipment as before, we start with drawing a rectangle. Length of arm less a half an inch times top arm plus 2 inches. This is the same for all sizes. This 2 inch would be increased for looser styles to 2.5 inches for blouses and jackets, and as much as 3 inches for coats. I'm again using an in-between size as a demonstration. Firstly, we fold the rectangle lengthwise. Next, we establish the depth of crown, or DC. For a 36-inch bust, this would be 5 inches. Add or subtract 1/8 inch for each size larger or smaller. I'm basing this on a 33.5 inch bust, so my depth of crown will be 4 7/8 inch. Fold down this amount and then fold the paper lengthwise again, creasing the paper firmly. Unfold and rule all the crease lines in. We have now established the forearm line, the top arm line and the back line, the depth of crown and therefore the underarm points. On the back sleeve line, measure down and mark 2 inches. On the forearm line, measure down 2¼ inches. Mark these points B and F. Draw guidelines U to B, B to T, T to F, and F to U. Mark T for top arm. Don't worry if these lines appear to be in line. It depends on your top arm measurement, but in a standard size it would look more or less like this. To create the curve, find the centre points on these guidelines. I judge it using my pattern cutter set square, and draw in perpendicular lines as shown here. On the UB line, measure 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch below. On the BT line, measure 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch above. On the UF line, measure 3/4 inch below. And on the FT line, measure 1/2 inch above. Rule in guidelines if you like. And then draw a sweet curve through all the points. You can use a French curve or a pattern cutter's guide if you have one. cut out the sleeve. Fold the sleeve along the back and front sleeve lines so that the underarm points meet. Turn over and, using the length of elbow measurement, measure from T to find the elbow point on the back sleeve line. Rule across at right angles to the fold. Rule in and crease along this line. At this point you can mark your balance marks to aid construction. Usually 2 inches below and 3 inches above the elbow line. To shape the lower edge, measure up 3/4 inch to 1 inch along the forearm line. And rule across. Also repeat this at elbow level. This will be a guideline when you come to draft shorter sleeves. Open up your pattern and draw in these guidelines. Finish off by rounding the lower edge curve. And cut off the surplus. That is the straight sleeve block drafted. But how does it relate to the bodice? If you compare the armhole measurement with the sleeve crown, you will find that the sleeve is 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch or so larger. This is the ease that is necessary to accommodate the bulge at the top of the arm. The best positions for matching the sleeve into the armhole are the B and F points. It is not necessary or desirable to match at the underarm. If you look at the bodice block, the front bodice is in fact significantly wider than the back bodice. The side seams are set towards the back. And when we come to drafting more sleeve blocks, for example the fitted and tailored sleeves, you will see that the sleeve seam is often moved to a different position. The top arm point is marked, but be aware also that the bodice shoulder seam can move around according to style. So to find B and F on the bodice, align T on the sleeve to the shoulder point on the back bodice. we are going to roll the sleeve along the seam. I just anchor a matching point on the sleeve with my pencil and rotate the sleeve along its path. When you have B aligned with the armhole, mark B on the bodice, but mark it about 1/4 inch or so above. This will give you a little ease for the back portion of the sleeve. Turn the sleeve over and match the marked B's. Rotate as before. At the underarm there will be sleeve seam left over. This is transferred to the front bodice, so make a temporary mark for U on the sleeve. Move the sleeve to the front bodice matching the U points. And make a temporary mark on the front bodice, showing where the sleeve ends. Slide the sleeve across to match the opposite side of the sleeve to this point, so that we can rotate the front sleeve seam along the front armhole seam. Rotate as before until F on the sleeve is against the armhole, and so mark F on the bodice. Turn the sleeve over again. As you continue to rotate the sleeve along the armhole, you'll find T falls a little beyond the shoulder point on the bodice. This is the ease as mentioned before. This method will give you a perfectly balanced set-in sleeve, and it will hang straight, and the small amount of ease will disappear in the sewing process. Mark in your F and B positions. Watch my video on sewing in a set-in sleeve, an episode of Making the Roll Collar Coat, and also on YouTube. That is the straight sleeve block completed.